So you want to know the best weapons in Dauntless? Well, I couldn't narrow it down to one, but we got four for you, and I'm going to show you them in the order in which you can actually acquire them in game, and I would recommend you get all four of them. They're all great weapons. We're going to start with the base version before we go to the escalation buffed version of the weapon. So the first weapon on this list is going to be Savit's weapon. This weapon gives you Pulse, which is a great early game way to get extra crits in, as well as the lightning boomerang effect that he has on it. One of the best parts about this weapon is even at its base level, you're not getting a lot of waste on it because it does have 2 finesse cells, and those 2 finesse cells are going to let you further increase your damage. The reason we're going over this one first, you can acquire it very early on in the game doing hunting grounds. The next weapon we're going to be talking about is the Stalker Weapon. These you can acquire just after you unlock the ability to get the Savit weapons and hunting grounds. These give you Assassin's Frenzy, which gives you an attack speed bonus when you break a behemoth part, which is really useful. This effect also helps with the unique effect of the weapon, which is chance on hit of generating a shadow orb, and these shadow orbs give you a stacking damage buff, and if you manage to get 5 of the orbs out, it doubles the damage buff. So a pretty substantial damage buff on this weapon, a very useful early game weapon. Now the cell slots on this aren't the best. You have 1 finesse cell and 1 insight cell. This is going to be good early game, but later on in the game you're probably going to want to get rid of that insight cell when you upgrade this to an escalation weapon. So the third weapon on the list that you can acquire is going to be the Caushai weapons, and the Caushai weapons are going to be really good early game as it's going to give you sharpen as a baseline bonus to part damage. The unique effect on it is also really good early and late game. After not dealing damage for 4 seconds, your next 4 attacks, not just 1 attack, but your next 4 attacks are going to deal 50% more damage. This is a great bonus. This works really well with Revenant and Tempest to get those Tempest and Revenant hits to be even higher, especially since it's 4 attacks. It works really well with modifying the damage for multiple tentacles from Revenant. Now this one for the cells gives you a Brutality cell, which is great, as well as an Insight cell, which is good early game, but you might want to get rid of that Insight cell later on in the game when you upgrade this to the escalation version of the weapon. So the last one of the weapons on the list for the base models of the weapons is the Resakiri Weapon. This is a great weapon with cunning on it, and the unique effect is really what makes it viable early game. The unique effect on it is a chance on hit to attack twice. Now this chance on hit depends on which weapon you're using. Some weapons has a lower chance on hit to attack twice, and some of them have a higher chance on hit to attack twice. It really depends on the base attack speed of the weapon. Now this one gives you a finesse cell and an insight cell. The finesse cell is going to be great early game, and so will the insight cell. You might not want to use the insight cell later on in the game when you can upgrade this to the escalation version of the weapon, as you're probably going to be able to get that second insight cell from another piece of equipment. So let's talk about the escalation versions of these weapons. These are the weapons you're going to be bonding to the escalation version of the weapons, because the escalation version of the weapons are going to give you another effect, as well as turning both of those slots into prismatic slots. And the advantage of turning these into prismatic slots is you can put anything you want there, which really gives you the build flexibility to get your builds optimized as best as you can by not being forced to put a certain type of cell in your weapon. This gives you the flexibility on your equipment to just get that little bit of extra build flexibility that you really need on a lot of the end game builds in Dauntless. Now, once you've decided which one of these weapons you want to max out first, I do recommend getting into the 10 to 13 version of their appropriate escalation as soon as possible to increase the amount of talent points you have for that escalation tree to make it easier to farm the higher level version of the escalation later on when you can start acquiring the part breaks from the escalation boss behemoth. Now we're going to go over these in the same order we went over the original weapons, although you can acquire these in any order you want. So once you're doing the 10 to 50 escalations, any one of these should be about as easy as any other one of these to acquire. It really depends on which one of the weapons playstyles you prefer or what build you're trying to finish. I would recommend going for the Radiant Weapon if you want more personal survivability, or I would recommend going for the Lightning Weapon if you want to make farming the other 3 weapons even faster, because the teleport will really cut a lot of time off your escalation runs. So the first weapon we're going to be talking about is the Valkyrion weapons. The legendary effect on this allows you to teleport to the behemoth doing shock damage. All of your attacks are going to do shock damage and have the ability to shock the behemoth. The unique effect also resets after 2 minutes or a behemoth being killed. This is really good in Gauntlet, hunting grounds, and escalations, as you're going to be killing behemoths relatively regularly, so you can teleport to the next behemoth a lot and close that gap between you and the next behemoth a lot quicker. This really helps if you're doing some farming to be able to just speed up the time farming. This is why this is the first weapon I would recommend going for if you're comfortable enough not having that extra self-res from the Radiant weapon, this one will definitely help you acquire the rest of them a lot quicker, and I would definitely recommend going for Valkyrions first. Now you're going to be bonding this to the Savit weapon, which is going to give you pulse as well as the lightning boomerang effect from the Savit weapon, but the biggest advantage is that your cell slots are going to be prismatic, so you can put any cell you want in this weapon. That's the main thing that makes the legendary weapons from Escalation legendary, is the flexibility in the cell slots. The next weapon we're going to be talking about is the upgrade to the Stalker Weapon. This is Thrax's weapon. Now, the unique effect on this weapon is not that great. What it does is it teleports you up into the air and allows you to slam down, dealing umbral damage to a select area. Not the best unique effect. This one also resets after 2 minutes or after you kill a behemoth. The main advantage of this one is also the prismatic slots, as the unique effect is not all that useful. It can save you a little bit of time, but not as much as the Valkyrion weapons as far as run clear times. But it also has a really nice bond effect from the Stalker weapons. So for damage output, this weapon is still pretty good, but I would rate this as the 4th weapon. All right, the next weapon we're going to be talking about is the Agars weapon. Now, this is a really good weapon if you're playing with like randoms, or if you're playing some really challenging content. To have at least one person with the Agars weapon is definitely useful. The unique effect on this weapon allows you to revive all slayers in a large area, as well as granting them a heal over time effect and immunity to staggers. This is really good out of the gate. The downside to this one is it resets after every behemoth kill or after 5 minutes. This is the slowest reset of any of the escalation weapons, but probably the most useful effect, so that makes sense. Now you're going to be bonding this to the Caushai weapon, which is going to give you that after 4 seconds, your next 4 attacks do 50% more damage, which is really good, as well as give you sharpened. That sharpened cell being in the weapon with the 2 prismatic slots gives you so much build flexibility. This is one of the best weapons in the game, in my opinion. This one is really good for Axe, Tempest, and Revenant builds. I would definitely encourage you to get this one as your 2nd or 3rd weapon from the escalation. All right, now we're going to talk about the one I probably use the most, and this one is one of the better ones for a Revenant build because of the unique effect on it. We're talking about Chronovor's weapon. This one is also probably the hardest one to acquire because Chronovor is pretty greedy with the drops. So the unique effect on this weapon allows you to rewind your position 3 seconds prior to activation, restoring health and stamina lost in that time, as well as removing debuffs. You also gain invulnerability and increased movement speed for 6 seconds. The advantage of this one, as well as the Agars weapon, is you can use these even if you are down, making these function as a self-revive mechanic. Now, the advantage of this one over the Agars weapon is this one is on a 90-second cooldown, whereas the Agars weapon is on a 5-minute cooldown. So you could use this one multiple times a fight if the fight is going really south on you. The disadvantage of this weapon is it is only going to be able to revive you. It only rewinds time for you. But you're also going to be bonding the Resakiri weapon to this, which is going to give you a chance on hit to attack multiple times, as well as giving you cunning. This works really well in crit heavy builds. This also works really good with Revenant builds, because if you're really pushing yourself and end up getting knocked down because you only have 1 hit point as your hit point cap because of Revenant, chance to get back up without affecting your self revives. Now, all these weapons can be acquired in the appropriate elements 10 to 50 escalation. If you're new to the game and you want to optimize farming these particular weapons and you have escalations already unlocked, I would recommend farming the parts for the base model of the weapon in the 10 to 13 escalation or the 10 to 50 escalation, so that you can level up your escalation while you're farming the base weapon. That will help you speed up the time it takes to farm the 10 to 50 version of the escalation, as you're already going to be in there gaining the experience for the talent tree. What do you guys think of these weapons? These are definitely, in my opinion, the best weapons in Dauntless. Do you guys think I missed a weapon, or do you agree that these are the 4 best weapons in Dauntless? Let me know which one you guys are going to acquire first, or if you already have all 4 of these, which one is your favorite one and why, in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.